Hey everyone. So in this video I wanted to go through the current state of tanks in the game, just like I did with the current state of support characters a few weeks ago. As far as balance goes, I think tanks are pretty fine. I do think, like I say in every video, that everyone's doing like too much damage, and I think, a global nerf across the board besides for DPS characters is something that's needed. But overall, I do think that tanks are pretty much in an okay place. Orisa's kind of annoying to play against as anybody, but I think it's doable. But I also think that you can't really talk about the state of tanks without talking about the rock paper scissors switching meta of the game right now and all the problems that come with it, especially with the conversation of 5v5 versus 6v6. And I'm not really going to get into that in this video, because that's kind of an overall thing that affects tanks, that affects support characters and DPS characters. So I'll make that its own video, but I'll touch a little bit on it over here. But I'm just going to focus on the tank aspect of, well, the overall state of tanks right now. So first, let's address the thing that comes to everybody's mind when you bring this up. Is counterpicking even real? So the answer to this is hell yes, counterpicking is real. That's such a lame thing people say to dismiss the problems with this. I don't understand why people don't think it's real, or other than trying to be a contrarian or just trying to tell you that you suck at the game. Now, most counters are soft counters, and very, very few are hard counters. I would say there's probably only one or two matches where you can say one tank hard counters another. But they do or have existed, is my point, specifically soft counters. And that's kind of what we're going to mainly delve into today. Because hard counters are, I don't really think there are that many hard counters. Well, I don't think the hard counters are enough to even be discussed. But hard counters have existed. The best example is Orisa when she was buffed to Infinity right before Christmas break last year, because they had made Roadhog so strong that they literally just buffed her to be that strong, just so that we could have a counter pick for how strong Roadhog was. And they were all leaving for the Christmas break, so nothing was going to be, doing anything for the game for about 2 or 3 weeks. Counter picking is so real that they keep patching in how much ult charge you get when you switch. They literally are patching an aspect of the game around counter picking. What more proof do you need? And what's even funnier is the gaslighting Blizzard did up to this point. I think in well, they used to do this where we were complaining about counterpicking since I think the game came out, right? This is something everybody knew was going to be a problem in 5v5. And even back then, they were like, counterpicking isn't a real thing. We're looking at the data. Nobody's really counterpicking. It appears like it is in your games, but that's not really the case. Well, guess what? That was a lie. Even in the last patch, they addressed counterpicking, the counterpicking switching meta thing, about how they keep changing how much ult charge you get to keep because you got an advantage if you switch early, if you switch late, or all that type of stuff. So it is a thing. It's a real thing that exists. And saying it doesn't exist isn't gonna make it better. If there's a problem, we need to talk about it so that it could get fixed. If you don't think counterpicking is a thing, or at least some rock paper scissors or meta thing happening right now, you're not playing the same game as everybody else, because this was even proven even more with the release of Mauga. Mauga amplified every single problem everybody had with the game. The 5v5 versus 6v6 argument, he was a big, representation of that. That whole counterpicking meta, not even just counterpicking between tanks, but then also counterpicking with the entire team, right? Because if you play Mauga, you force your opponent to play to not play certain characters, but also force their support characters to get a Kiriko, because you're setting everybody on fire every 2 seconds. Which also snowballs with the incompetence of the Blizzard team of balancing the game, because they threw in Mauga in there with super buffed everything, probably to sell battle passes. But so it all just kind of mixed in together to just become complete chaos. So there definitely is a form of counterpicking problem in Overwatch 2 that did not exist to the same degree in Overwatch 1. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't think anyone is saying, that you are guaranteed to win a game just by choosing a hero that is a better matchup against another, tank-wise. Which, by the way, is the most annoying argument people make, in general, right? It's like when you say, everybody knows this, and there's no, literally not everybody knows that. I know somebody who doesn't know that. It's like, I don't mean literally everybody knows this thing. Literally, 7 billion people know this thing? No, that's not at all what people are saying. So we're not talking in absolutes here. So yes, with enough skill, you can outplay the design advantages of the enemy tank. We know this. But I think actually let's talk about that first before we get into the other topics, because I want to make it clear that we do understand that it is a good thing to play other characters and to learn how to play against other characters, and that flexibility is a skill. Now don't get me wrong, knowing how to play more characters is definitely a skill. Now I don't think everything should be equal, right? I don't think all the tanks should be like perfectly balanced against each other, right? It makes sense for some characters to have an advantage against other characters because of just how unique the game is overall, right? The characters are also unique. The way you can play the game is very unique. So that's just going to be built into the game. I don't think people should be lazy and not learn how to play other characters and just keep blaming the switching counterpicking meta. And it's not just learning to play other characters, right? It's also learning how to play against other characters. Some people, instead of learning how to play a character that counters them, they just switch out like immediately. Like they don't even try to play against these characters. I once had a game where I forgot what I was playing as, but anyways, he was playing as a character. I was playing as a character. I think I died, but I counterpicked his character, and then my team killed him, and then when we made it to their spawning point and he walked out as his character, he literally just turned around, went back in, and then counterpicked what I was playing as. And it was funny. It was quick play, so who cares. But yeah, some people switch way too fast without even a second thought, so they never actually get good and they keep complaining about the switching meta. So there is, you always have the outliers, right? The people who are going to complain one side while they're the problem, and the other people who complain the other side while they're also contributing to the problem, or at least not trying to fix it. So yeah, they never get good, they never learn new ways to play, and getting better at some characters against more characters makes your understanding of the game just overall much better. I think people who have taken the time to learn other characters and how to play against more characters should be rewarded for it. Look at me, for example. I learned how to play Zarya just because I hate everybody always switching to Orisa when I want to play Doomfist. But there should be a reasonable threshold for this, right? I understand being flexible should be encouraged and rewarded, but I also understand that being forced to switch sucks. I hate playing Zarya. I hate it. She's so boring. You guys know the characters I like to play. I like the dynamic characters. I like Doomfist. I like Genji. I like Echo. I like those characters. Even Ryan, I would say, is pretty dynamic. Maybe not. But I don't like playing Zarya. And you might say, well, that's what you get if you want to win. Well, if you want to win, that's what you got to do. And I say, yeah, well, fine, but you're right, but I'm still not happy. And this kind of brings us to the next category, the skill versus design advantages. So like I said, with enough skill, you can outplay any disparity in design one tank has over the other. So yeah, you can do that, or you can switch and get an advantage over the other person too. If you're equally good with one character or another character, and you can choose between a character who has an advantage against the tank you're playing against, why wouldn't you play that other character? Is it your pride, your honor? No, man, people just want to win. I think that's the thing, like, the argument keeps kind of ignoring. If you could have an advantage, why would you not take the advantage? It kind of promotes counterpicking. Like, we're playing this game because we want to win. Unless I'm playing quick play again, then I'm just like, I'll just be Doomfist and be toxic forever. But if I want to play in quick play, then I'm gonna switch. So every game I play, I always start at Doomfist, because I could play Doomfist against maybe, let's say, 90-80% of tanks. I could play against those tanks because I normally don't counterplay like that. I don't counterpick. I just stay as Doomfist and learn how to play against most of these characters. But eventually they always go Orisa, and then I'm forced to go Zarya, and then they go Rhine, and then I go back to Doomfist. So the one tank system does mitigate skill more in 5v5 than it does in 6v6, because the advantages you get from certain matchups can supersede the opponent's skill. They can be better at you in things like positioning, timing, even like mechanical skills, but it depends to what degree. If, let's say, your skill is like an 8 out of 10, like your value of your tank play is like an 8 out of 10, and the other person's like a 7 out of 10. But then they counterpick you, and then because of the design of the character, it bumps them up like 1.5. So now they're 8.5 out of 10, and you're still just at an 8. Not because they have more skill than you, but because the disparity the difference between the advantage their character gives them is more than how good you are at the game. Well, is higher than how much better you are at the game than they are. And it could be just a tiny little thing, but you know, it's enough to push them over the edge to start beating you. But then you counterpick them, and then because your actual skill is an 8 and their actual skill is a 7, so now you're choosing something that is better than them, that counterpicks whatever they're playing, then you just mop the floor with them in the next round. So yes, you can beat any matchup with enough skill. The problem is to what end? Because you can get infinitely good at the game. Are you just going to tell everybody to get infinitely better? No, you can't. You can't do that. It's not a practical thing to say. So that is something I think should be part of the conversation or the equation of the counterpicking thing. Yes, you can get better with enough skill, but until what point? Right? Until what point is it reasonable to just say, hey, just get better? And this actually goes into another argument that people like to make about the whole debate, which I do agree with this, but again, up to a certain point. Just like the whole thing, I agree with both sides up to a certain point, right? If I haven't made that clear, I think with the first or second part of this whole video, I think that's what I was trying to get across. I think both sides are right, but there's different thresholds, and one threshold is a lot lower than the other. So anyways, the argument is that you shouldn't even be fighting the other tank, right? So the argument is, if you're having trouble with like the counterpicking thing and all that type of stuff, it just means that you suck, right? Because you shouldn't even be fighting the tank, which is a little true. There's definitely some truth to that, right? It's more than a little true. It's like a good chunk of that is true. Because if you're out here dishing damage out on a tank, you're just wasting your time. You're just trying to get a high number to show that you're doing damage, so you can point at your teammate and be like, look at my damage, man, I'm doing all the work I can. No, you shouldn't be fighting the tank. The tank should be like the last thing you're fighting, depending on, well, we'll get into that. So let's look at something like Doomfist and Orisa, right? If you wanted to pick a counter pick for Doomfist, you're gonna pick Orisa, right? She's a very viable pick for that. So but if I'm Doomfist, if I charge my punch, you're gonna spear me and you're gonna turn that off. Or you're gonna walk in front of me and fortify yourself. Or if I'm gonna power block, you're gonna spear me. Or use your spinning spear thing to just push me, out of position. And if I want to slam into the enemy or slam away, you're gonna spear me and turn that off too. Like, just about everything she does can stop whatever you're trying to do. So as a Doomfist player, what do? Right? You just skip the Orisa, right? You just don't engage Orisa. Just kind of completely ignore her. You jump in the back line, pressure her support characters, right? That way they're not healing her, and they're kind of freaking out a little bit. But support characters are really strong. But that you're supposed to put pressure on the support characters, and then since she's not getting any healing anymore, if you have like competent DPS, or well, support characters are stronger than DPS. If your support characters are competent, they're gonna kill the Orisa like pretty quickly. So that's how you're supposed to play Doomfist into Orisa, right? You're not supposed to go directly into her, and I would consider Orisa kind of a hard counter to Doom. I think that's maybe the only one. There might be another one that I would consider a hard counter. But again, that's if you don't know what you're doing, right? You shouldn't be fighting the Orisa. But what if the Orisa also knows that how to play against a Doomfist doing everything I just suggested, right? What if the support characters on the Orisa both know that, hey, we gotta stick together. That way he can't pressure me outside of healing her, and she can stop the Doomfist from doing anything he's trying to do. Like, what if you just can't get away from them? Because that's how you counter. That I think that's the best way you counter your counter picks. You just ignore them first of all, because you're not supposed to be fighting tanks, and you just go for the squishies. But what if they don't leave you alone? Because I know when I play Doomfist and the other person's playing Reinhardt, I don't go after the support characters that much. I bully the hell out of the Reinhardt because I know he can't do anything against me. Like, he can't do a single thing against me. So I just bully him until he dies, and then I know I have my entire team, and now it's just a bunch of squishies I need to run away. So are you gonna tell that Reinhardt, yo, just get better? like you can't. How good that Reinhardt is gonna have to get in order for his skill to surpass my advantage as a Doomfist against him, while I'm also good, it's just not. It's not gonna happen. Like it won't work. Like, there are limits to how far your skill can get you, especially if you both are really good and they understand the counterplay to your counterplay. And in a scenario like that, it's not even the tanks that that need to counter you, right? It's your support characters are the ones who are going to be countering the enemy tank that's giving you some trouble.
I would like to interrupt this video to ask you to like and subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, chances are you kind of like what I'm talking about. So, you know, help me out, guys.
Which I guess we can move on to that category now. Like, the support counters are like much more like hard counters than tank counters are. Ana and Kiriko counter most of the tanks. Like, those two together just counter most of the tanks. There are some tanks you just can't play depending on who the support on the enemy team is. And this is also a symptom of the 5v5 composition. Instead of having to choose which tank they would have to use their abilities on, like in Overwatch 1, now there's one tank. You'll put that man to sleep. He's like, oh, is that Mauga trying to heal? Yo, turn that off. Turn off his healing. Like, you don't have, as a tank, you don't have like your co-tank to kind of, you know, mitigate your weaknesses, right? It's not like DPS where your teammate could kind of make up for your weaknesses also. But also, I don't think, you know, DPS characters are overtuned the way, you know, tanks or support characters are. And again, the only reason tank and support characters are overtuned right now is because we switched to the 5v5 meta. And again, that's another video. But anyways, having the two support characters makes getting counterpicked as a DPS much less likely, unless it's like a Sombra Widow situation. But yeah, it makes it much less likely and also much less detrimental, right? Because if you're Genji and then you have like a Symmetra hosing you down and you die, everyone's like, oh, Genji died. But if you're a tank that dies because the other tank was just like better than you, not just in skill, but also they were bumped up because of just their design against yours, the matchup, then everybody's like, oh no, our tank is gone. So now all this just comes down to, like, is this just part of the overall game design? Like, is it a good thing that we just, or not even, is it a good thing, or is it just something that we need to accept? And I would say, yeah, kinda, right? Mainly because they're not gonna go back to 6v6, right? I don't think the devs will ever walk back going to 5v5, despite how they've shown how they're incapable of balancing the game. So maybe this conversation is pointless, but it's fun, so we're gonna talk about it. Plus, it helps highlight the other issues in the game by talking about this. And hopefully it helps, well, they don't listen to anything. They don't listen to anybody. So I'll just finish the sentence. It helps them kind of figure out what's wrong with the game to try to get it fixed, right? Because if you guys remember, even in 6v6, we only had 6v6 with role queues for, I don't even think we had it for 2 years before they stopped working on the game. I don't think we had it for 2 years before they stopped updating the game, which is why double shield became such a problem. But again, that's a different video. But as for the part of, do we just have to accept it? Like, I guess, so I said yes earlier, but also, no, right? It's only part of the game because they made it part of the game. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be a counter-picking fest, but it is. So maybe we just need to suck it up. I hope one day they bring back 6v6 in some form, right? Kind of how they have open queue, but I don't play open queue. But I hope they bring back 6v6 in some way. But then they'll probably need a whole other balancing team to be able to do that. Now, do I find Overwatch 2 more fun than Overwatch 1? Absolutely not. But Overwatch 2 is still fun, right? So there might be ways to fix this, but I don't know what that is yet. And yeah, I'm an engineer. I always think there's a way to fix things. You just have to keep tweaking things until it works. So maybe they're gonna fix it one day. And I think I just decided maybe that should be my next how to fix video. Maybe not, but maybe I should make a video of how to fix the counter picking problem of Overwatch 2. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, that's it for the video. Leave a message for the algorithm, like and subscribe, and don't forget, I love you.